Clarity is the one thing most people are desperate for when it comes to love, and it's also the one thing that feels hardest to find. Dating today can feel like wandering through a maze without a map. Ghosting, mixed signals, endless texting with no follow-through, the pressure of social media highlights, it all creates confusion. And confusion, when left unchecked, breeds anxiety, self-doubt, and even despair. That's why women have gravitated toward Matthew Hussey. He has a gift for stripping away the noise and bringing a sense of order to something that otherwise feels chaotic. He helps women understand that love doesn't have to be an emotional guessing game. It can be a space where clarity and confidence live. What makes his voice different is not that he claims to have all the answers, but that he can make the questions themselves less overwhelming. He takes what feels like vague, complicated behavior from men and decodes it. For example, when a woman wonders, why did he stop calling? Or why do I keep attracting the wrong kind of guy? Matthew doesn't just hand out cookie-cutter advice. He walks her through the psychology behind those patterns in a way that clicks. Suddenly, instead of feeling like she's failing at love, she understands what's really happening, and more importantly, what she can do about it. That shift from helpless confusion to empowered clarity is why women return to his guidance again and again. Because let's be honest, relationships are the one area of life where even the smartest, most successful people can feel completely lost. You can have a thriving career, manage a household, even lead a team of people with precision, and still feel paralyzed by one unanswered text. Hussey recognizes that, and he treats women's questions about love with the seriousness they deserve. He doesn't diminish their struggles by calling them silly or overthinking. Instead, he validates them, then provides frameworks to cut through the fog. That respect, combined with his practical advice, creates a sense of trust. Philosophically, clarity is about more than just understanding the other person. It's also about understanding yourself. Hussey challenges women to examine what they want, what they're willing to accept, and what they're no longer willing to tolerate. He reframes dating from being about, does he like me, to do I like who I am when I'm with him? That's a subtle but profound shift. Suddenly, the power dynamic changes. Women stop chasing clarity from men who refuse to provide it and start creating clarity within themselves. And when you're clear on your own worth, you stop settling for someone who clouds your peace. That's why clarity is such a cornerstone of his work. It's not just about decoding men, it's about helping women decode themselves. And that is revolutionary in a world where so much relationship advice still encourages women to adjust, to shrink, or to wait for someone else to define the rules. Hussey flips that script. He says, no, you get to define the rules. And here's the truth worth remembering. The relationships that last are not built on confusion. They're built on transparency, on certainty, and on alignment. And clarity isn't something you wait for someone else to give you. It's something you demand, both from yourself and from the person you choose to share your life with. So the next time you find yourself lost in the noise of dating, wondering what someone's mixed signals mean, pause. Instead of chasing clarity from them, ask yourself, what do I need to see clearly about me? Because the moment you gain that clarity, you stop being lost. And when you're no longer lost, love stops feeling like a maze and starts feeling like a path forward. When women talk about why they resonate so deeply with Matthew Hussey, one theme that comes up again and again is his authenticity. And authenticity in today's world is a rare commodity. Think about how many voices are out there right now claiming to know the secrets of love and relationships. Scroll through social media and you'll see an endless stream of experts dishing out quick fix advice. Most of it feels rehearsed, surface level, and transactional, sound bites designed for clicks rather than genuine guidance. Hussey stands out because his words don't feel like they're designed to impress. They feel like they're designed to connect. Authenticity is powerful because it creates trust. You can't really absorb guidance from someone if you feel like they're putting on a mask. And women pick up on that intuitively. They can tell when someone is giving advice because it's trendy versus when it's rooted in lived experience, careful observation, and a genuine desire to help. Hussey doesn't speak from a pedestal. He speaks like someone who has sat down with thousands of people, listened to their stories, and synthesized patterns into something meaningful. That groundedness allows women to lean in, not because he's promising them a perfect love story, but because he's showing them a real one. But here's the deeper layer. Authenticity is magnetic because it gives permission. When someone shows up as their unfiltered self, it unconsciously signals to others that they can do the same. Women listening to Hussey often feel a sense of relief, as if someone finally said out loud the thoughts they were embarrassed to admit. For instance, when he addresses the pain of waiting by the phone or the heartbreak of pouring energy into someone who won't commit, he doesn't dismiss those feelings as needy or dramatic. He validates them. That honesty allows women to see themselves without shame. And that's transformative because when you remove shame, you make space for change. There's also a philosophical depth here. Authenticity is not just about being real. It's about being aligned. It's when your words, your actions, and your values all flow in the same direction. And that's the very thing Hussey models. His advice doesn't encourage women to play games, manipulate, or hide parts of themselves to be chosen. Instead, he encourages them to show up fully and trust that the right relationship will honor that fullness. That's why his message cuts through so strongly. It's not teaching women how to be someone else. It's teaching them how to be more of themselves. And this matters because inauthentic love stories never last. You can only keep up an act for so long before it crumbles under its own weight. But when you start from authenticity, when you're willing to show who you really are, even if it means some people will walk away, you build connections that have the power to endure. Hussey embodies that principle, and in doing so, he helps women embody it too. So here's the takeaway. Authenticity is not just something you look for in a partner. It's something you must demand of yourself, because the more honest you are in how you show up, the more you filter out the people who don't belong in your story, and the closer you move toward the ones who do. And that's the gift of authentic guidance. It doesn't just tell you what love should look like. It shows you how to live in a way that attracts the kind of love that will last. Another reason women continue to turn to Matthew Hussey is his ability to balance empathy with accountability. And that balance is rare. Too often, relationship advice swings to one extreme or the other. On one end, you have advice that is all sympathy. It's not your fault. You deserve better. Just wait for the right person. While comforting in the moment, it often leaves women stuck in the same patterns, waiting for life to change without taking action. On the other end, you have advice that's all tough love, delivered in a way that feels cold or dismissive, making women feel judged instead of supported. What Hussey does so effectively is bridge that gap. He acknowledges the very real pain and struggles women face, but he also challenges them to take ownership of their choices. That combination works because empathy builds safety and accountability builds strength. Without safety, people shut down. Without strength, people stay stagnant. Hussey's approach creates both. He listens, validates, and reflects the emotions his audience is experiencing, but he doesn't leave them there. He redirects that energy into action. For example, when a woman shares how much time she has spent on someone who won't commit, he doesn't say, "You're foolish for wasting your time." He says, "Your love is valuable. You've been giving it to someone who hasn't earned it. Now, what are you going to do differently moving forward?" That shift reframes pain as power. The psychology behind this is important. Human beings need both compassion and challenge to grow. If you only get compassion, you risk staying in a loop of justification. If you only get challenge, you risk feeling attacked and defensive. Hussey's unique strength lies in delivering truth in a way that feels like care, not criticism. And that's why women are able to hear him. It's not that he sugarcoats the hard lessons, it's that he communicates them with an underlying respect that says, I know you're capable of more, and I refuse to let you settle for less. What makes this balance even more profound is that it mirrors what healthy relationships themselves require. Love isn't just about being understood, it's also about being held accountable to your best self. Think about it. The partners we cherish most are the ones who can both hold us when we're hurting and challenge us when we're limiting ourselves. Hussey models that dynamic in his coaching, giving women not only advice, but also a lived example of what respect and care look like in practice. And here's the philosophical depth. Empathy without accountability is indulgence, and accountability without empathy is tyranny. The sweet spot in the middle is where transformation lives. Women trust Hussey because he consistently occupies that space. He doesn't just empathize with their heartbreak, he empowers them to make choices that prevent the same heartbreak from repeating. That balance is the bridge from helplessness to agency. So the reflection here is simple. The people you allow to guide you and the people you allow to love you should embody that same balance. They should see your pain, but they should also see your potential. Because when someone can do both, they don't just comfort you, they change you. Another reason women place so much trust in Matthew Hussey is his ability to simplify complexity without ever oversimplifying the truth. Relationships are layered. They're not just about attraction or compatibility. They're woven from threads of psychology, communication, timing, self-esteem, and past experiences. It's no wonder so many people feel overwhelmed when trying to figure out why their love lives aren't working. What Hussey does is strip away the noise and present those complex realities in a way that feels digestible, actionable, and, most importantly, empowering. That clarity matters because confusion is paralyzing. When people don't understand what's happening in their relationships, they tend to default to one of two extremes. Either they internalize the blame, it must be me, I'm not good enough, I always mess things up, or they externalize it. Men are the problem, love doesn't exist, there's no point in trying. Neither of those beliefs leads to growth. What Hussey does is interrupt that cycle by breaking things down into practical steps that reveal both the agency women have and the reality of the situations they're in. Take, for example, the often heard advice, if he's interested, you'll know. If he's not, you'll be confused. It sounds simple, and it is, but behind that simplicity is a profound truth about human behavior. Hussey distills complicated dynamics, like mixed signals or inconsistent communication, into language that cuts through self-deception. He doesn't drown people in jargon or abstract theories. He gives them words they can use to make immediate sense of their circumstances. That's why women walk away from his talks not just inspired, but with tools they can actually apply. The psychological depth here is fascinating. Human beings have a tendency to overcomplicate situations that involve emotional stakes because emotions distort clarity. When you want something to work, your brain starts looking for loopholes, excuses, and what-if scenarios. Hussey's strength lies in removing that distortion. He helps women step outside the emotional fog and see the situation with objectivity. He essentially says, this isn't about what you wish were true. This is about what is true. And there is a liberation in that kind of clarity. Philosophically, you could say what he does is teach people to stop worshiping potential and start living in reality. Potential has destroyed more relationships than incompatibility ever has. How many people stay stuck because they see what someone could be instead of who they consistently are? Hussey calls that out. Not with cynicism, but with honesty. He invites women to stop investing in futures that never materialize and to start choosing based on the evidence in front of them. That kind of simplification doesn't diminish the complexity of love. It honors it by making it understandable. And when something becomes understandable, it also becomes actionable. That's the real gift of clarity. It gives you permission to move. Women trust Hussey because he turns confusion into direction. He replaces "I don't know what to do" with "here's my next step." And here's the reflection. Life and love will always be complex, but they don't have to be confusing. The people you choose to guide you should be the ones who can cut through the noise and point you toward truth. Because once you see truth clearly, you can no longer settle for lies. Another reason women continue to trust Matthew Hussey is because his guidance doesn't just address the surface level issues in relationships. It gets to the root of how people perceive themselves and what they believe they deserve. Most relationship struggles aren't simply about finding the right partner. They're about identity. They're about self-worth. They're about the quiet beliefs running in the background of our minds that tell us what we should accept, how much love we think we're allowed to receive, and how much effort we're willing to put into our own happiness. Hussey consistently speaks to that deeper layer. He reminds women that every decision they make in love is a reflection of how they see themselves. If someone stays in a relationship where they feel undervalued, it's not just about the partner's behavior. It's also about the story they've been telling themselves about what they deserve. If someone constantly chases after someone who gives the bare minimum, it's not about that person's charm. It's about an internal belief that scraps of affection are all they're worthy of. And this is where Hussey has a unique ability to connect psychology with practical wisdom. He knows that confidence isn't a switch you flip on, it's a muscle you build. The same way you wouldn't expect to be strong after going to the gym once, you can't expect self-worth to skyrocket after one pep talk. It takes repetition. It takes choices. It takes practice. Every time you set a boundary, every time you walk away from someone who doesn't respect you, every time you demand reciprocity in a relationship, you are building that muscle. Philosophically, this touches on something powerful. Love isn't just about choosing someone else. It's about choosing yourself first. The irony is that the more you prioritize your own self-respect, the better your relationships become. Not because you were suddenly hard to get, but because you're harder to diminish. When you raise your standards, the wrong people naturally filter out. And the right people, they step up. Hussey has a way of shifting the conversation from "how do I get him to love me?" to "how do I love myself so fully that I only allow in the kind of love that matches it?" That reframing is transformative. It turns women from passive participants in their love lives into active architects of their future. Instead of waiting to be chosen, they start doing the choosing. This isn't about arrogance, and it's not about perfection. It's about alignment. You can't expect to create a relationship that feels healthy and whole if the version of yourself showing up to it feels insecure, fragmented, or unworthy. Hussey teaches that the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every relationship you have with others. And when women take that seriously, their lives change because suddenly love isn't something that happens to them. It's something they cultivate by who they choose to be and what they choose to allow. And here's the final truth to sit with. The love you accept is the mirror of the love you believe you deserve. Change the belief and you change the reflection. The final reason women place their trust in Matthew Hussey is because his guidance is not built on fantasy, but on sustainable real-world application. Too often, advice about love is packaged like a fairy tale, promises of instant connection, quick fixes, or the idea that once you find the right person, everything will magically fall into place. But Hussey never sells illusions. He doesn't tell women what they want to hear. He tells them what they need to hear. And while that might sting in the short term, it's the kind of honesty that builds lasting change. He emphasizes that relationships are not something you stumble into and then coast through. They are built, nurtured, and maintained. That means communication has to be intentional, boundaries have to be respected, and effort has to be reciprocal. Love, in his words, is not a passive state. It is an active choice made daily by two people who are committed to showing up for one another. This approach shifts the focus from external validation to internal accountability. Instead of asking, why isn't he treating me the way I want? Hussey invites women to ask, what am I allowing? What am I reinforcing? What am I modeling? That shift is subtle but revolutionary. It removes the helplessness that so many feel when relationships don't go as planned, and it replaces it with empowerment. Because when you realize you have the ability to set the standard, to walk away from what doesn't align, and to create the conditions for respect, everything changes. And the truth is, relationships mirror the level of clarity and strength we bring into them. If you are unclear about what you want, you will attract partners who are equally unclear. If you fear being alone, you will attract partners who sense that fear and use it to give you just enough to keep you around. But if you are grounded in your worth, if you are willing to rather than lose yourself, you will find that the wrong people fall away quickly and the right people step forward. This is where Hussey's work feels so deeply practical, because it doesn't rely on waiting for luck or fate. It asks women to develop habits of self-respect, habits of emotional honesty, habits of courage. And over time, those habits become character. That character attracts a different caliber of love, one rooted not in desperation or fear, but in mutual admiration and respect. The psychological truth beneath this is profound. You don't get the love you want, you get the love you believe you can sustain. That means your growth, your healing, your ability to show up authentically, they all matter just as much as the qualities you seek in another person. Hussey's guidance works because it asks women to stop waiting for someone else to make love feel safe, fulfilling, and exciting, and to start embodying the kind of partner they wish to attract. At the end of the day, that's why women trust him, because he doesn't just teach them how to find love. He teaches them how to build the version of themselves who will know how to keep it. And if there's one message to take away, it's this: you are not powerless in love. The love you seek begins with you. And the moment you decide to raise your standard, you change not just your relationships, but the entire trajectory of your life.